A jaguar, the undisputed king of the Amazon, is found dead. No gunshot. No trap. No signs of a fight. For years, everyone blamed one animal, the puma. But scientists have now uncovered evidence that changes everything. What they found wasn't just unexpected. It may completely rewrite what we thought we knew about the Amazon's most powerful predator. Because the real killer was hiding in plain sight. And by the end of this documentary, you'll understand why even the king of the jungle isn't safe anymore. The Amazon rainforest is often called Earth's last great wilderness. Stretching across 9 countries and covering millions of square miles, it shelters more life than any other place on the planet. Towering trees block much of the sunlight, rivers carve through dense jungle, and every shadow seems to hide another predator. But among them all, one animal has always ruled: the jaguar. Powerful, silent, nearly invisible. Unlike lions that hunt in prides or wolves that rely on teamwork, jaguars hunt alone. They don't need help. They possess one of the strongest bite forces of any big cat, capable of crushing turtle shells and piercing the skulls of prey with a single bite. They're also exceptional swimmers, something few other cats can claim. Rivers, swamps, and flooded forests are part of their hunting grounds. For centuries, indigenous communities respected them as guardians of the forest. To many cultures, the jaguar wasn't just an animal. It was a spirit of strength and survival. So when healthy adult jaguars started turning up dead, scientists were stunned. These weren't elderly cats nearing the end of their lives. They weren't starving. And they showed almost no signs of a violent struggle. Something powerful enough to kill the Amazon's top predator was operating deep inside the rainforest. The obvious suspect seemed to be another big cat, the puma. For years, rumors spread that increasing competition between the two predators was leading to deadly encounters. Rangers occasionally found claw marks, disturbed vegetation, and overlapping territories. The theory sounded convincing. 2 apex predators, 1 shrinking rainforest, a battle for survival. But there was one problem. The evidence didn't fit. Some dead jaguars showed injuries that didn't match a puma attack. Others had almost no external wounds at all. Even stranger, several of the deaths occurred in places where pumas were rarely seen. If pumas weren't responsible, then what was? That single question would launch one of the most fascinating wildlife investigations in recent years. And what researchers discovered next would force them to abandon their original theory entirely. Because the real answer wasn't another predator waiting in the shadows. It was something almost no one had considered. The first clue didn't come from a dramatic attack. It came from silence. When biologists returned to tracking stations across the Amazon, something felt wrong. Cameras that normally captured powerful jaguars patrolling their territories showed nothing. Days turned into weeks. At first, researchers assumed the cats had simply moved. But jaguars are creatures of habit. Adult males often patrol the same territory for years, leaving scent marks on trees and trails. They don't just disappear without a reason. Something was forcing them out, or killing them. Then another body was discovered. This one was different. The jaguar was in excellent physical condition. Its muscles were strong, its stomach wasn't empty, and there were no deep bite wounds that would suggest a fight with another predator. Even more puzzling, the surrounding forest looked completely undisturbed. No broken branches. No signs of a desperate struggle. It was as if the animal had simply collapsed where it stood. That discovery changed everything. Scientists transported tissue samples to specialized laboratories, expecting to find evidence of poison, disease, or hidden injuries. Instead, the first laboratory results raised even more questions. The jaguar's organs showed signs of severe internal damage. Yet there were almost no external injuries. It didn't resemble a typical predator attack, nor did it match the effects of starvation. Something inside the animal had gone terribly wrong. Meanwhile, camera traps continued recording life throughout the rainforest. They captured tapirs crossing muddy trails, even elusive pumas passing quietly under the moonlight. But one thing stood out. The pumas weren't behaving like killers. In fact, in several rare recordings, pumas and jaguars appeared in the same region just days apart without any evidence of violent conflict. That was unexpected. Although the two species compete for territory and prey, deadly fights between healthy adults are surprisingly uncommon. The long-held theory that pumas were systematically killing jaguars was beginning to fall apart. Then came another twist. GPS collars fitted to several jaguars revealed strange movement patterns shortly before they died. Normally, jaguars move with confidence, traveling miles each night as they patrol rivers and hunt. But these animals behaved differently. Their movements became slow, unpredictable. Some wandered in circles. Others stopped traveling altogether for days. To experienced wildlife biologists, those patterns suggested something far more disturbing than a territorial battle. It looked like the animals were becoming sick. Very sick. The biggest threat to the Amazon's most powerful predator wasn't another cat at all. It was something invisible. Something spreading through the rainforest without making a sound. The question was no longer, who is killing the jaguars? Now it had become, what is? And when scientists traced the evidence deeper into the jungle, if jaguars weren't being hunted, then they were dying from something they couldn't see. To find answers, researchers expanded their investigation across multiple regions of the Amazon. Blood samples, tissue samples, parasites, and even water from nearby rivers were collected. Every clue mattered. What they discovered first seemed unrelated, but it would soon connect everything. Several dead jaguars carried signs of severe inflammation in their lungs, liver, and brain. Under the microscope, pathologists noticed damage that looked more like the result of an infection than a predator attack. Yet no known disease perfectly matched the pattern. The mystery deepened. Then another breakthrough arrived. Biologists began testing the jaguar's prey. Capybaras, peccaries, deer, even caimans. If the jaguars were getting sick, perhaps the source wasn't the cats themselves. Perhaps it was what they were eating. The results were startling. Some prey animals carried dangerous parasites and pathogens that normally remain hidden in wild populations. Most infected animals appeared healthy, making the threat almost impossible to detect. A jaguar could hunt a perfectly normal-looking animal and unknowingly consume something deadly. But there was still a missing piece. Why were these infections becoming more common now? The answer wasn't found in the animals. It was found in the forest itself. Satellite imagery revealed that large sections of the Amazon had been transformed in just a few decades. Roads sliced through untouched wilderness. Forests were cleared for agriculture. Rivers were contaminated by mining, while expanding human settlements pushed deeper into jaguar territory. As habitats shrank, wildlife that had once lived far apart was suddenly forced into close contact. That created the perfect conditions for diseases and parasites to spread between species. Ecologists call this a spillover effect. When ecosystems are disrupted, pathogens can move into new hosts that have little natural resistance. Even an apex predator isn't immune. Then came the most chilling discovery of all. Camera traps recorded jaguars behaving in ways researchers had almost never seen before. One staggered as it walked. Another ignored easy prey. A third wandered through the forest in broad daylight, appearing confused and disoriented. Healthy jaguars don't behave like that. Those weren't the actions of a wounded fighter. They were the symptoms of an animal losing its battle from the inside. Suddenly, the investigation took a dramatic turn. The evidence no longer pointed toward pumas. It pointed toward an invisible combination of disease, environmental disruption, and ecological imbalance. But scientists still couldn't explain one final mystery. If infections were responsible, why were only certain jaguars dying while others survived? The answer would require genetic testing, and what those results revealed would become the biggest breakthrough of the entire investigation. The genetic tests took months. Every tissue sample was examined. Every blood marker was compared. Scientists weren't just looking for a disease anymore. And eventually, they found one. The jaguars that died weren't all victims of the same virus or parasite. Instead, they had something else in common. Their immune systems had been pushed to the breaking point. Years of environmental stress had left them vulnerable to infections that healthy animals might have survived. But what was causing that stress? The answer wasn't hidden in the jungle. It was hidden in what humans were doing to it. Across the Amazon, forests are being divided into smaller and smaller fragments. Highways, farms, cattle ranches, mining operations, and logging have carved the rainforest into isolated islands of habitat. For a jaguar, that's a disaster. A male jaguar may need hundreds of square kilometers to hunt and reproduce. When that territory is cut apart, the cats are forced into smaller areas where prey is. Hunger weakens them. Stress weakens them. And weakened immune systems make infections far more dangerous. Then came another unexpected discovery. Researchers tested rivers flowing through regions with intensive mining activity. The results revealed elevated levels of mercury in some waterways. Mercury doesn't kill like a predator. It builds up slowly through the food chain. Small fish absorb it. Larger fish eat them. Caimans and other predators consume those fish. Eventually, jaguars feeding on contaminated prey can accumulate mercury in their own bodies. Over time, it can affect the nervous system, damage organs, and reduce reproductive success. It wasn't the only problem, but it was another piece of a much larger puzzle. The pattern became impossible to ignore. The highest number of mysterious jaguar deaths occurred in landscapes where multiple pressures overlapped. Habitat destruction, reduced prey, human disturbance, increased exposure to disease. Together, they formed a deadly chain reaction. This was the moment scientists realized something profound. The question had never been, what animal? It was a collapsing ecosystem. The puma had been blamed for years because it was an easy explanation. It was the slow unraveling of the rainforest itself. And if that process continued, the jaguar might not be the last species to disappear. Because when an apex predator begins to vanish, it often signals that the entire ecosystem is in trouble. But there was still one final question. Can the Amazon and its jaguars still be saved? Or has the damage already gone too far? The mystery had finally been solved. For years, many believed another predator was responsible for the deaths of Amazon jaguars. There was no secret war with pumas. Instead, scientists uncovered something far more dangerous. A chain reaction created by environmental change. Habitat loss. Pollution. Disease. Declining prey populations, and increasing conflict with humans. But together, they were quietly weakening the Amazon's greatest hunter. And when the king of the rainforest begins to fall, the entire ecosystem feels the impact. The jaguar's role in the Amazon. They're a keystone species. By keeping populations of herbivores and smaller predators in balance, they help maintain the health of the rainforest itself. Without jaguars, prey populations can grow unchecked in some areas, while other species decline. Over time, that imbalance can ripple through the food web, affecting vegetation, rivers, birds, reptiles, even the forest's ability to regenerate. In other words, protecting jaguars isn't just about saving one magnificent animal. A reason for hope. Across the Amazon, conservation teams are working around the clock. Camera traps now monitor wildlife corridors. Satellite technology helps detect illegal deforestation in near real time. Local indigenous communities, who have protected these forests for generations, are partnering with scientists to track jaguars and safeguard critical habitats. In some regions, protected wildlife corridors are reconnecting fragmented forests, allowing jaguars to safely move, hunt, and find mates without crossing roads or farmland. These efforts are already showing encouraging results. Where habitats are protected, jaguar populations have become more stable. It's a reminder that when nature is given the chance to recover, it often does. The bigger lesson. For years, the puma carried the blame. But science demanded evidence, not assumptions. And that evidence revealed a much more complex truth. Sometimes the greatest danger isn't a predator hiding in the shadows. One that humans may not notice, until the consequences become impossible to ignore. The Amazon isn't just home to jaguars. It stores vast amounts of carbon, influences weather patterns across South America, and supports millions of people and countless species. If its top predator struggles to survive, it's a warning the world shouldn't ignore. Final thoughts. Somewhere in the heart of the Amazon, as night falls over the rainforest, a jaguar still moves silently between ancient trees, unseen, unheard. A symbol of strength, resilience, and the wild spirit of a forest unlike any other. Depends on the choices we make today. Because once the king of the rainforest is gone, bringing it back may be impossible. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more true wildlife mysteries, forgotten discoveries, and science-backed stories from around the world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And tell us in the comments, what shocked you the most? The fact that pumas weren't the real culprit, or how many hidden threats the Amazon's jaguars face today? Until next time, stay curious and never stop exploring the secrets hidden in the wild.